Well, insanity, but you know what? Moving on, moving up. Let's get some real customers in there and sell the home and actually close it this time. That would be a good thing. So guys, if anybody has a buyer for, it's 8.6, right? Yeah, 8.6 million, beautiful home in Golden Oak,
Yeah.
Janice got the home.
Yeah.
It's
Bring your
beautiful.
buyers. We're paying 2.25.
Oh, wow.
That's a nice payday on a beautiful home. It's gorgeous. So yeah. Okay. So good morning, everybody. Happy Hurricane Day, right? I hope you're all staying safe. Anybody getting anything from this hurricane yet? I mean, we have a lot of rain over here, but anybody getting anything? We're all good? Okay.
All good. Rainy.
Yeah, what about you,
Had
Callum?
a tornado warning.
Yeah.
But
You're
it's
kinda-
sunny
yeah.
outside right now, so
Oh,
everything
really?
is very good.
Well,
Yeah.
it may have passed you, right? Because you're kind of south of it.
Yeah, like first thing this morning, it was black and doomsday looking, and then it
Yeah.
all disappeared, and now it's great.
Yeah. Because Callum is south of us. You're Stewart area or further south now?
Yeah, West Palm Beach, Stewart,
Yeah.
all the
Okay,
same, really.
Yeah, so you're kind of further south. He's part of Alistair Brown team, so they're all over it. Sometimes he's not even here; he's in another continent. So we never know. Okay, so today and that's good for you guys to know. If you need things in the UK, he often works at London or Scotland, so
Yeah.
we have a connection. Of course we do. We're Sotheby's guys. That's what we do, right? We are all over the world.
International.
That's right. Exactly.
International.
I mean, even within our own offices, right? That's how we work. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get this going because we've got lots to cover today. All sorts of fun. So where to begin? Oh my goodness. First, we're going to actually talk a little bit about a couple things in the contract because I want you to talk about a little bit with the hurricane going on. I want to talk a couple things about, let's say I sent out, just so you know, that extension, this addenda that went out, this extension, if you do need it, force majeure would cover you. Just so you know, let's actually talk a little bit about force majeure. Force majeure would cover you if you can't bind insurance, if you don't have electricity, if something is being prohibited for you to continue the sale due to the storm, whether something having to do with binding insurance, you can't continue because of that. Closures, that is the force majeure clause, but it's always good. You could use an actual extension addenda. And so I sent that out yesterday to everybody. So if you got it, that went out with all the hurricane preparedness, but it is in Florida Interactive Forms in case you wanted to know where it was. And it's very simple. I want you to know though, if you're on the buy side, and if you still have a financing contingency, my suggestion, if you're ever using this and you're going to extend a closing date, if you're representing the buyer, please also extend the financing, right? Because that's the one thing oftentimes we sometimes miss, and you might extend the closing date, but you didn't extend financing, fall through the cracks. And then you think, oh, well, we're okay, we extended, but you didn't check the second box here. And now they don't have a financing contingency and they lose their money. You guys all with me on that one? So what's great about this form is they're right next to each other, closing date and financing period. Now, if you're on the sell side, obviously we don't like that. But if you're on the buy side, we do. So everybody good with that? Okay. So this addenda was sent out for you if you need it, but if for some reason you can't find it, it is under Florida Interactive Forms. Just type in extension. Remember, when you're doing Florida Interactive Forms, and everyone knows where that is, right? Does anybody need me to kind of show you where that is? Let me kind of go back. If you're in templates, let's just go into an office. And if you're in, you go into templates. Let's go back a little. You go down to Florida Interactive Forms. Every form written by both legal teams, Florida Legal and the FAR Bar, as well as CRISP, remember, are in here. So that's why, see, you have to look and see who wrote it, because if it's the CRISP, you don't want that one. You only want the FAR Bar ones. So be very careful that you're picking the right addenda. Everybody with me on that one?
Yep.
Okay, so you just want to start typing in
Serious.
extension, and then you can see the extension addenda. Okay. So that's that. Now, moving on to the contract, another thing. Let's say for some reason, like this, what's happening with Jules, the bank says, well, we can't wire the funds today because the bank's closed, but we want to sign anyway and close. We used to have something called dry closings. If you've been in the industry for any length of time, you may know we used to do that all the time, have a dry closing. They stopped that about 2 years ago, and it's been changed in the contract on line 50. Am I in a contract? No, I'm in an exclusive at a sale. Here, well, hold on a second. Let me go back in here. Let me get in our actual contract. Sorry, I opened so many documents and I'm omitting a lot of people, so it's a little bit cumbersome. Let me go in here for a second. Let's just go in a contract real quick. There we go. Line 50 over here, closing date. The closing of this transaction shall occur when all funds required for closing are received by the closing agent. That changed in October 2021 when they changed the contract that time. So that means there is no such thing as a dry closing. You can have people sign, like if there's a timing issue and the banks need signatures, don't give the keys if you're on the list side, right? Because there's no real closing. The closing does not actually happen until the funds are collected. Everybody with me on that? That was a big change that happened, especially in foreign national sales. That used to happen all the time because the funds never wired right. Heck, the funds could take days to come. We know that. Heck, I've seen things take a week, maybe longer. The people don't get the keys until the money comes, because sometimes I've also seen this happen where the banks pull the money back and the funds never came. So what happens if they took possession of that house, right? The funds never came. Now you got to evict them. Nobody wants to get in that. So remember,
It's received and collected.
Received and collected by the title company, which
Correct.
means if the funds never arrived, you don't have a closing. So until you give the money comes into the title company and they pass the money over to the seller, I would say do not hand over those keys. Now, sometimes the seller's bank, they might put a hold on it or whatever. We don't care about any of that, right? Doesn't matter. Like that's not the point. The point is the title company has processed the funds and passed them off, right? That's what happens. You with me? Everybody good on that?
Yep.
The other thing I want to mention, we're in the middle of a weather situation. Let's call it that. Okay. And a lot of people say, well, we've already passed our inspection, so they can't re-inspect. Sorry, guys. If you're on the listing side, sorry. If you're on the buy side, good news. You can. And so we're going to take a quick look over here at the inspection clause, which is clause L, access to property. This actually says seller shall, upon reasonable notice, provide utilities and service, by the way. So when the seller turns off the utilities, they are in default of contract, by the way. We've all seen sellers who turn off the utilities, right? They're in default of contract. They have to provide utilities and service and access to the property for appraisals and inspections, including a walkthrough prior to closing. Does it say one time? No.
No,
No, it doesn't say only if there's financing.
no.
They have to give this, and this isn't an as-is contract. So it is the same thing in a residential. So the as-is is worse, right? So this means that if there's a storm event, can the buyers re-inspect? The answer is yes. Yes, they can. And here's the question. Let's say there's damage to the property because of the storm event. Who's responsible? The
Seller.
seller. The seller owns the property till closing day. Once the property changes hands, now it's the buyer's property. Which is why, insurances don't want to bind it, right? They don't want to have any kind of liability. And which is why, of course, the buyer's like, wait until after that event to close, right? So this is the situation, though. They have every right due to section L here, line 508 in an as-is, it's a different line in a residential, that they have the right to access the property at any time, obviously reasonable notice, right, to the seller, but to be able to do an inspection or an appraisal. And it doesn't say only one time. So if they want to, what was that question?
Listening to this call.
Okay, So everybody good on that one? I mean, you might not be good, but that is the truth of it. And I want you guys to be aware of that because that is something that we may see moving forward, right? Okay. The other thing that Miss Janet brought up, and it's something that I do think I need to bring up because sometimes we don't think about it, and it is time, which is F. Let's go to time. Time is of the essence, right, in the contract, which means everything we have to move forward as much as we can. And we all know that time in a contract is calendar days, right? Everything is calendar days. The only thing other than the effective date, obviously, there we go, and the date it's accepted. Those are the only dates that it doesn't matter what date ends on, but every other date in your contract, you know, inspection, when the money's due, right? All of those days, if they end on a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday, it actually carries over until the next business day, which would be typically Monday, but unless the Monday is a holiday, you following me? So we compute the time using calendar days, meaning the contract goes effective on Thursday. Thursday is the effective date. It's a 3-day for the escrow. When is I'm going to stop my share for a second. 3 days for escrow. When is the money due, guys?
Tuesday.
Anybody else? It's effective Thursday. 3 days.
Monday.
Monday. The answer is Monday. Because
Monday.
it's calendar days, you count Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but they cannot turn the money in on Sunday, right? Because again, it's a Saturday, Sunday. So it would be due Monday.
Monday.
You're thinking business days, Max. You said Friday, Monday, Tuesday. There's no business days in our contracts.
Right.
Business days are only MLS. Everybody with me? Now,
Yeah.
to this point, that means also that they don't have to give you the money on Sunday. They have until Monday. So be careful if the closing date is written on a Sunday. It's not closing on Sunday, right? We all know that. So you got to be careful when you're adding dates in there. Also, the inspection was coming due on a Sunday. Is it really due on a Sunday? Not really. They really have till Monday. All dates really are coming due. Could you push that? I mean, it could get gray, but really time in your contract is to the next business day. That's really the day it will end. It says it right there in the contract. So I would suggest always erring on that side, but if you're on the buy side, be ready, and make sure you're set ahead. But it very clearly states, as we all saw that, let's just go back one more time and look at it. It's all dates. Calendar days based on where the property is located, right? Shall be used in computing time periods other than acceptance and effective date, right? Doesn't matter. Because if they take it on a Saturday, then Saturday is the effective date, right? We all get that. But set forth in paragraph 3, any time periods provided for in the dates specified in the contract, whether they write them in, type them in, whatever, if they occur on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday, then they will fall on the next business day. See that? So I just want you guys to all be clear about time. Everybody good on that one?
Tara, I think you bring up I think an even bigger point that never ever crossed, my mind is that that affects the inspection
It does, yeah.
contingency. Obviously with the banks and whatnot, yes, there are some banks open on Saturdays and technically people can go in and wire the funds, which, the 3 days, it would have been end of Saturday, but it was rolled over till Monday. But the inspection period, if that ends on a Saturday, then technically they have until Monday, and that's never something that I've.
Absolutely.
I'm in the middle of class.
It is all time periods. That's what it says. All time periods, because all time in the calendar is based off of calendar days, but if they end on a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday, they roll over. Now, I'm gonna tell you, nobody really reads their contracts. So most agents out there don't know that. And so they're gonna try their hardest to get it done on the Saturday to Sunday. But if we know that, right, it's an advantage for us. But I'm gonna say, if you're representing the buyer, it's like an ace up your sleeve, right? That's the advantage of really knowing your contracts. So, just so you know that. Now, if you're a sneaky agent, I'm just gonna say, we've seen many out there, and you always make your inspection date due on a Saturday. What are they doing? They're sneaking in days, right? For their customer, because they're really sneaking into Monday. And so they're making it seem like it's a shorter inspection period, but it's really not. So now that can't always work, obviously, because it depends on when the effective date is, right? But it's just something to think about. Okay. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention because it was a great question, Janet, when you brought it up. But it really is truly time, all time periods except for the acceptance and the effective date it affects. So any questions on any of that? Okay, now let's get to the fun. The new fun, shall we? First, I need to talk about the buyer broker agreement because we're having some questions, and I'm even having a question that I'm having Budge answer for me, how he wants me to do it. But I'm hoping that he answers it sooner than later, but you know, he's a busy man, so I can't expect that he will. So there are two buyer broker agreements, as we all know. There is the Florida, and I'm going to bring this up, guys. One thing I want to bring up, real quick. Everybody knows Juliana Giordano's a doll. She's a broker as well, not with us, but she's a broker advisor. And she has offered to assist with anybody with questions. Understand, anybody can be a broker, could have been a broker with other companies. Premier Sotheby's doesn't do anything like anybody else. If you have a brokerage question or you have a question about policy, you have to come to me. For example, a broker question about a broker buyer agreement, you can't go to the Florida Legal Hotline. We don't use their agreements. They can't answer a question about our agreement. We wrote it, right? And the way we would handle, for example, a commission situation is going to be different than how another company will, because we do things our way, with the Premier way. So anything having to do with brokerage or anything having to do with the NAR settlement, any of that's please only come to me. Everybody understand? Good with that? Okay. So, and there was a question because of that, because somebody wanted to talk to the legal hotline about our broker buyer agreement. Could you imagine what they would say? I have no idea what you're talking about. We don't know anything about this agreement. We didn't write it. So this is the thing. This agreement was written by other attorneys and we're allowed to do that, but it's different than the Florida legal team's agreement. Has the same components, right? But it's different. So our agreement is softer. We want this to be used for a couple reasons over the Florida one, the exclusive right of sale listing agreement. Is this one wrong? No, it's not wrong. Is it scarier? Yeah, I think you're gonna have more trouble getting your buyers to sign this one than ours because ours is a lot softer. The only thing that I'm working on right now is how Budge wants us to add in a bonus. Right? You go to a builder and let's say you got your customers to say they're going to pay 3%. Then you go to the builder and they're offering a $5,000 bonus. You have to add that on here. Because even though at the builder, they wrote in on their agreement that they're paying you 3%, for example, plus 5,000, we can't pay you that because you're in violation if you receive that. And if you get called down to it, they're going to take that money from you and maybe hit you with a fine. It isn't pretty, guys. That is what the settlement is about. So we would need this to be modified. So what I've asked, what I've done now twice is I've simply added a text box here that says plus $5,000 bonus. So I'm not sure if that's exactly how he wants me to handle it. See, on this one, the exclusive right of sale, no, that's the listing agreement. Sorry. On theirs, where is it? I had it open. Good God. Yeah, I have so many things open. Where is it? Where's the broker buyer agreement? Let me pull it up again. Sorry. Let me show you. On theirs, there's a place for it. So I know it's okay. See, and also too, by the way, look, they have no brokerage, single agency, transition to transaction there, and transaction brokers. So the other thing is if you use the wrong one, now you have the wrong agency. That's a problem. We can't do that. But see here on theirs, it says you can do, let's say 3% plus $5,000. And under additional fees, we could say $395 additional commission. So it's okay to do it. I'm just wondering the best way to do it. So I will find that out for you because in ours, as you see, we already have put in here the $395 for you. So I'm just going to see if we can't just write, which I've done twice now, plus $5,000 bonus. But if we add anything like that to here, what I'm going to say is we need to get this initialed buyer. You understand what we have to do? We have to modify this agreement. Y'all okay with that? You understand where we're going with this? So you can have it at 3%, go show homes, find out that it's more. If you want to add the bonus, you can. Or you could have gone to 4% or 5% and then need to cut it back and change it to 3% plus $5,000 bonus or whatever. We can always modify down too. These things can be modified, okay? But sometimes it's harder to modify up than it is modify down. You all right with that? We can always modify, not a problem, but it is just make sure that we are modifying it.
No, it was a while back that you did it. I was feeling with his ex-wife.
You guys with me? We got to be modifying it before closing is really the thing, because we want to make sure that the date stamps of the signatures are before the closing. It really should be by the time you write the contract. Because if we get audited, that's where we could be in violation. Everybody understanding that so far? Let me just make sure there's no questions out here. Everybody understand? You are not allowed, I'm going to say this one more time, to get paid any more than what that broker buyer agreement says. So if you go to, say, a builder or a home, now this is the other thing you could do. You could just write a new broker buyer, a new agreement, single property. You could just do one single property. That's for more builders, and just say for new construction, and then do another one for regular resale homes. That's another way you could do it. You could do two broker buyer agreements, one broker buyer agreement, and under the geographic areas, you could write for new construction, and then you could do another one for resale homes, right? Because depending, you don't know which way they want to go. So this way you have two broker buyer agreements, and that way the resale one is written at a different commission, and the one that if they go new construction is written higher. That way you don't have to adjust. Another thought. So however you want to do it, guys, is up to you, but I'm just giving you suggestions and options. Okay, whatever works more convenient, however you think your customer will feel more comfortable. Sound good? Or you could do single property, whatever way, on one home that they're going under contract for. You just want to change one. It doesn't matter. But whatever you go into contract for, that broker buyer agreement has to equal the amount of commission you're getting paid for. If it is more, then the buyer is supposed to be bringing you money at closing. So we want to adjust it if you weren't intending for the buyer to bring you money. Does that make sense? Everybody with me on that? Okay.
Hey, it's Angela.
Hey, Angela.
Hi, I'm sorry late on, but I'm glad that I came in at this point. So I've been signing the people that I'm actively showing.
Sure.
I'm doing 3. If it's new build, I put 4. So then all we have to do is just cross out an initial, whatever the real commission is.
Perfect.
Okay, then I'm in compliance. Now the issue is there a minimum we need to sweat out, or is just work it through?
Work it through.
Okay, thank you.
Work it through. Okay. Yeah. What is the problem is, who was it? Mike. Mike, can you share your story about the coffee shop and Dr. Phillips? You're the one who, that's a horrible story. Horrifying, guys. Share that.
So I was getting coffee at Starbucks, and I stood over to the counter waiting for my coffee, and there was 3 individuals at the little table by where all the napkins and stuff were. And I happened to look over and notice that it was a contract, a real estate contract. So I stepped a little closer just to eavesdrop. And the agent turned the paperwork around and was explaining buyer broker to them, and the area where the amount of commission that they would agree to pay, they circled it and said, we're just going to leave this blank. So just sign here. So
Number one, violation, guys, because the whole point of the transparency was that the buyers decide how much they want to pay. So saying we're going to leave this blank is a violation. Number two, if these buyers are smart, guess what? They never have to change that. So this idiot is working for free. Right?
Yeah,
How stupid. Because they just signed an agreement because a blank is a zero, right? So, I mean, maybe they're not in violation in the sense that he just agreed to work for free. I mean, you know, his mind is a violation, but their mind is like, great, you idiot, you're going to work for free. We don't know. It's one or the other. He's trying to be Slim Shady and they're super smart. I don't know. Mark, what's your question?
Are title companies now requiring the buyer's agent to submit this?
To my knowledge, they have not begun that yet. I'm waiting for the form. So Joanna Watkins has told me there will be a form coming out that I don't know if it will be the actual buyer broker agreement or another addenda that will go to title that will have all the required information on it. And it will state how much the buyer broker commission is. And if they get audited and it's different, ooh, that will be very, very bad. So yeah, it will be on there. But they may be also requiring to supply it. That I don't know. I will tell you guys. So as you know, I'm in the Broker Advisory Council as well. And in our last meeting, I suggested, and they're going to submit it to the board to vote on, that software that we had seen where when you start working with a buyer, you have to submit your broker buyer agreement. And that way you can see, are they working with other buyers? Have they signed another agreement? Like that whole amazing software system. I suggested that we have that, we institute that software. And so and I gave some new reasons why we should do it. And so they're going to submit it to the board to vote on. So hopefully that's something that we institute. I really hope so. So we'll see. Stellar does not want to be the first one to bring it to market. I think they should be, or I would have ran with it. But, you know, Stellar likes to wait and see other people try it first. So we'll see what happens. But I think if we brought that kind of software to market, that would be amazing. So we'll see what happens. Okay, moving on, unless there's another question on that. Are we good on that?
To expound on that, can we ask our title company if we're the listing agent to ask the
You
buyer's
can
agent?
ask them. I mean, again, I don't know if they will. And right now there's no requirement. So that's the thing. But you can ask them. I mean, there's no harm in asking them. Whether or not they will or not is, you know, again, for example, Stellar cannot request, they cannot request our listing agreement, but they can request a broker buyer agreement. That is definitely what they can request. So it's not like it would be a violation for them to ask for it. Will they ask for it? I don't know. You can ask them, but we can ask for it, but they don't have to give it to us. And so it's better that the title company asks for it. So why not ask them to ask for it? Yeah, I don't see a problem with it, but I don't know that they'll do it. Okay, so okay, we're all good with this so far. No questions in the broker buyer agreement. I did want to bring up really quickly. There are again 3 different broker buyer agreements that we offer. Is everybody clear as to what the 3 are, or do you want me to hit on that real quick? Any questions? Do you want me to hit on it, or everybody understand the 3?
Hit on
Silent.
them, please.
Okay, so the broker buyer agreement that we're just looking at, this is the general one. But you can put it out by geographic area. So to Angela's point, you could say new construction, resale, and you could say the area, Central Florida, Ocala, Marion County, whatever you want to say. The length of the agreement, that's another way that you can shorten it. Listen, I'm not sure, you know, we don't know each other. How about we work for a weekend? How about we work for a week? How about whatever? This is up to you. That's another way to shorten it. But all of our agreements, so you know, are exclusive, because why would we do anything but? Just so you know. And this is, we enter into purchase the property with however long, right? This is how we're doing it. We just talked about that. And this is, of course, our professional fee. Like, why would we not want 3 or 4%? That's up to you though, right? And again, we're trying to talk about what we're going to add for the bonus. But this is very, very basic. Additional terms, really not much of a need to write anything about that. I would suggest if you're talking about, listen, if we need to lower it, we will, don't write anything in additional terms. I mean, that's something that I would just speak about and not write, okay? I would kind of try to keep that part blank. And notice everything is broker or advisor. I don't have to sign it. You can sign it yourself. Also, one other thing I want to bring up is dispute resolution. That gives us the right to go after it. Okay, but really we would go after it legally. This would be a legal battle. Everybody clear on that? Okay, now that is the basic one. Single property, this is the idea. Maybe you have an open house and the person wants to put in an offer on that open house. When you're at the open house, whether it's you're the seller's, the listing agent, or you're doing an open house for someone. You know, Mike's hosting an open house for Teresa, for example. And then somebody comes in and they want to put in an offer. He didn't have to do broker buyer agreements with everybody who walked in because I'm the broker, right? But somebody wants to put an offer. Now he has to do broker buyer agreement. He can use a single property. He doesn't have to do a full one because they're not going to go looking at all sorts of homes. He could just do a single property and put in the offer. But he has to do a broker buyer agreement or he cannot write an offer. That's the violation, right? So this is, other than the fact that it's only one property, so you don't have to, you just list the property's address. It's pretty much the same, right? The fee, right? What's your brokerage fee for that? Now, oftentimes, because if it's our properties, most of the time our sellers are offering compensation. So the great thing is you could say, great news. This fee is actually being covered by the seller, you know, that kind of a thing. That's a great point. But this is, again, the reason that you would use a single property. Everybody clear on that?
Okay, I have a quick question.
Sure.
It's Penny. Okay, so let's say, and hi, I was here earlier. I was just trying to scramble and put a top on. So.
Well, thank you for sharing. It's not that kind of a Zoom.
I know. Okay, so let's say on this single, the single buyer brokerage agreement, I'm at my listing, doing an open house. Someone walks in that does not have representation.
Yep.
I'm required to do a single buyer brokerage with them, or can I just
Only
be a transaction
if they want
broker?
to put in an offer.
So that's my question, because then wouldn't that make me a dual agent?
We don't have dual agency in the state of Florida because we're transaction.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's the confusion. That's where I'm lost.
Okay.
Like, just clarify me a little bit.
Yeah, coming from Atlanta or Georgia. In the state of Florida, we're transaction brokers. We don't represent the buyer. We don't represent the sellers. We're not single agents. We represent the transaction. So even though, yes, you're the listing agent, we have no fiduciary and we have no full confidentiality. So because of that, we represent the transaction. So we can represent both the buyer and the seller. There is no such thing in our state as dual agency. Dual agency only occurs when you are a single agent for both parties, which is illegal in our state. So, but we don't function as single agents. And if we ever did, that means that we can't represent both parties because that would be illegal. Because you know fiduciary and you have full confidentiality. So you know way too much about both parties. And that's just too much to bear. Yeah. So that's the difference.
So it's basically just the paperwork. That was my confusion, because I know we are automatically transaction brokers in Florida. We can't be dual agents. But my confusion was, okay, so someone comes in to look at my listing and there has to be a buyer brokerage agreement in place. So
only if they put in an offer. They can put your agreement all day, their property all day long because you're working for the seller. That's your job to show the property. But if they want to put in an offer because of the settlement, they have to have a broker buyer agreement.
That's what was confusing me. That how do I? Okay, so basically, I sign a buyer brokerage agreement.
You have to sign the buyer broker agreement so they can put the offer in, and the single properties, because you're not going to be showing them every property under the sun. You're just putting an offer in on your property.
No, I got all that. I got all that.
You're just confused because of the single agency. I know.
Yeah, because I'm like.
It's confusing.
So then, yeah, okay.
Casey has the same problem. You and Casey could talk. Yeah, she has that.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
very common when you come from another state. I know, it's weird, totally different here. Now, the last one, guys, that you're really not gonna use, it's gonna be, this is like, I'm gonna call it your Hail Mary. Okay, this is the Hail Mary one. It's the Buyer Listing Advisor Representative Agreement. So we're just gonna call this one, this is now being renamed the Hail Mary. And we're calling this that because this means you're working for your seller who says, I'm not offering compensation. Okay, this happens. And you said to him, well, what if a buyer comes and the buyer refuses to be represented? Do you not want me to show him a property, or do you want me to work for you? You offer to pay me more as your listing agent to do all the stuff. He goes, all right, fine. I'll pay you an extra, however much more to represent that, not to represent them, but to work more for me to do all this extra stuff. That's what this is. You're telling them, I'm not representing you as that because this is transaction brokerage. So I'm still doing all the parts, but I'm doing it for my seller for additional fees for my seller. So that's what this is. This is the property. This is the length of the term. I'm working as a transaction broker. So I'm doing all this stuff, but you don't have to pay me because my broker is my seller is paying me extra fees to do all this extra work. That's what this is saying. So this is the Hail Mary if your seller who won't pay a commission to the buy side. So he selected on the exclusive right of sale. On here, he selected 10C. I will not pay a commission. And if a buyer comes and he says he will not be represented, but he wants to see it and he wants to put in an offer, the seller said, fine, I will pay you extra money. I'll be right there, April, if you do more work. And so that is what this is. And that's why I call this one, where is it? I've lost my spot. This one, the Hail Mary. Yes, April. April.
Okay, sorry, I'm doing this with my phone, so it's.
No worries, it's never very, yeah, it's very cumbersome, I know. Go ahead.
But let me, okay, so what do we do about the flat fee commission on the buyer side? If we are representing the seller?
I couldn't really understand you, I'm sorry, what?
So how do we handle the flat fee, the $3.95 commission for the buyer on the buyer? Or do we charge them that even though we're just representing the seller?
Yeah,
Does that make
there is
sense?
no commission from the buy side. That's what it says. The owner seller is compensating the listing advisor directly for assisting buyers as part of the listing professional fee, and therefore the buyer has no obligation to the broker's professional fees should a contract between the buyer and seller lead to a successful closing.
That includes that $3.95, right?
Yeah, the $3.95, there would be no $3.95 to the buyer because we're not representing the buyer really in this sense.
Thank you.
Yeah. But honestly, I will be shocked if I see more than one of these. I don't think I will. Everybody clear on what this is for? I really don't ever, I really feel like changing this to Hail Mary. I really don't think we're ever going to be using that. Felix.
Morning,
Good morning. What's your question?
Are we then asking for 3% on there too? Or is that
That's when you're working with your seller. So, you know,
right.
you're basically handling both sides, but you're going to be, you know, it's how you're going to work that out with your seller. Remember,
Got it.
that's going to be how that works. If you could get 3, that would be amazing, but good luck with that. I don't think that's going
Okay.
to happen. This is that cheapskate seller. I don't, you know, if he was willing to give you 3, why wouldn't he give it to a buyer's agent, right?
Yeah.
If you
But
can get it though, good all day long. I find that hard to believe.
what's an average? Is there an average that you've seen historically? 1%?
Well, no, and
2%?
we've never seen this one. I've not seen a seller
Got it.
so, you know,
Yeah.
okay, we're not going to pay. I have not seen that.
Okay.
So I can't say historically because I have not seen one. And I
Okay.
hope you never see that beast, but they may be out there. And that's what that's for. That's why I'm calling it the Hail Mary. Because I'm not going to say they don't exist. I don't know that they're a Sotheby's customer, to be honest, but I'm
Yeah.
not saying that we don't represent them, right?
Got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so are we ready to move on to the really fun stuff? Compensation. Yeah? Okay, great. So excited about that one. So here we go. Compensation agreements. Let's go back to the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. You're in a listing, you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, my professional fee is 50%. No, I'm just kidding. That would be so great. So my professional fee is, let's say, 3%. How much do you want to offer to someone who's bringing the buyer? They say the same thing, 3%, great. So that would be a 6 up here. You check in A over here and you're writing 3, right? We all know how to do that. But if they say, you know what, Carrie, I don't know that I want to pay. I'm not sure how much I want to pay. I may not want to offer anything. We don't love that. That would be when you do C. Again, I don't recommend B. And I don't care that Florida realtors might like the idea that it takes any kind of risk from us. We're a full service company and we like to represent our sellers to the utmost. So we'd say to the seller, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's nice that you want to offer 3, but you do it on your own. Like, we're not going to say that. That's not who we are, right? So we would do A. Does that make sense? The difference between A and B is, okay, seller, you're handling it yourself. We're not going to really handle that for you. That's what B is about. Does that make sense? CA is what we always did. We handle it just like we normally would. That's why A is the business as usual. Everybody clear on that? Any questions between A and B? So really, Sotheby's is really an A. B is not something we would want to entertain. Yeah, we don't want to take the risk, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. You do it yourself. I mean, we're just, we're not an EXP, guys. We are Premier Sotheby's. We do full service. That's who we are. We're going to handle things for our customers. That's our clientele that we always deal with, right? That's who we are. So now if they say, well, we don't really know, we might consider, but we're not willing to say how much now. That would be C. Now, again, I would say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I can appreciate, we do all the things that we normally do. If you want to try that, why don't we try that for a week, see how many offers or listings, or 2 weeks, whatever you want to do. I would write under additional terms, like I said. We're going to try this for a week or 2. And if we haven't gotten X amount of offers or X amount of showings, we will have another conversation. I would totally write that in the listing agreement. That's me, but that's up to you. But that is what we are doing. Everyone feel confident in the list side. I don't think that's where we're having confusion. Now, here's the thing. If we did A, business as usual, this is the seller's broker to buyer's broker. And essentially we could fill out, we're the seller's broker. We don't know the buyer's broker. We know the property and we know the amount we're offering. But the thing is, we need to put under other, let's say it was 3%, based upon a full price offer. Because let's say the home is 8.6 million and they come in at 7. Is the seller going to be offering that? No, right? No. So the point is that percentage, and let's look back at it again. Whatever we've written here, 3, 2, 2.5, 1, it doesn't matter. This has nothing to do with us. We care when we're doing our listing about this. When we do our listing, this is fixed. Okay. So if it was 6, then this is 3. This can go down to 1. We don't care, but this 3 never changes. Are we good? If this was 2 and this stays 3, it never changes. This number here is fixed. The time of negotiation for the seller and the listing agent is the listing presentation. This is our professional standard. These are all the things we're offering. If we're the company for you, this is what our professional fee is. It is negotiable at that moment. That's when we decide, are we a good fit to work together? Once we've decided that, it is no longer negotiable. We're in an executed contract. Everybody clear on that? In this executed contract, is there cancellation, guys? No, no cancellation. Conditional termination means if I choose to, me, not you, if I choose, we can remove it from the market. The seller pays all of my indirect costs, which is really only charging the $1,500 setup fee, whatever you write in here, and they still can't market the property till the end of whatever you've written in here as the end of the termination date, right? Up here. So you can't cancel. It's not like you just quit and say, oh, no problem, you get your money back. No, That's not how this works. We're in an agreement. We're spending a ton of money to try to sell your home. We're putting all of this out there, right, to the world. The Juwai in China, and Nikkei in Japan, the Financial Times in India, Mansion Global, right? Country Life in the UK, Le Figaro in France and in Switzerland. I mean, this is going all over worldwide. As soon as we pull the plug, do you think that just comes away? No, the next company gets the benefit of all that. So that's why we don't just say, oh, no problem, we'll just cancel. No, we don't. So that is the point. I want you to be very clear on that. So their time of negotiation, this is where I think there's confusion. It is negotiable at the listing appointment, and then it's not. But this compensation to the buy side, have they got into a buying an agreement with the buyer yet?
No.
So that is negotiable until it closes. You follow me? Because let me ask you, this commission here, who's actually receiving that? The buyer's agent, right? Let's talk about that for 1 second. Who is receiving the commission? I mean, unless we're representing the buyer's agent, it's the buyer's agent, right? The buyer's agent receives that commission. They received that commission because they ended up with a sale. It culminated in a sale between the buyer and the seller, right? So that's when it's due. That means it is negotiable up until that time between how the buyer and seller choose to pay it. What is not negotiable, and it's not between the seller, is what has happened between the buyer's agent and the buyer. The time of negotiation for the commission for the buyer's agent is when the buyer and the buyer's agent meet and they have their presentation, right? That's when that negotiation happens. Like at Starbucks, when he says, oh, we'll just not take any money. That was a very bad negotiation on his part because that was his moment of time, right? So that's when your negotiation, that's when your value proposition has to be really good because that's when you're securing your value. And whatever you write on that form, 0, whatever, hopefully 3, 4, right? But that is the time that becomes firm for the buyer's agent. It's firm. Now, whether they choose to change it or not, that's not between us, right? That's between them and their buyer. But really, that's firm. Now, the negotiation between the buyer and the seller that's going to happen during the sale, that is just simply hot potato. Who's going to pay what part of that, right? Am I going to pay some of it? Are you going to pay some of it? Where's it going on the HUD? What side of that HUD is it going on? You follow me? But at the end of the day, the number never changes. It's just who's going to pay what part of it? What side of the HUD is it going to show up on? Is it going to show up on the buy side? Is it going to show up on the sell side? Where is it going? Hot potato. But it doesn't change the amount. You follow me? Because it's on the broker-buyer agreement. Unless they wrote 0. And that's their fault. You follow me? So this is the problem. This is the problem we're having. The agent who's writing the broker-buyer agreement is completely confused. They think they have to secure their commission with the seller. They don't need to do that. Their commission's not coming from the seller. Their commission's coming from the buyer. If the buyer chooses to get the commission from the seller, that's between the buyer and the seller. You follow me? But the commission was already determined between the buyer's agent and the buyer. This is the change. And this is what the DOJ totally took off the table in California. They said, no more talking between the buyer's agent and the seller. No more. No more talking between both buyer's agents and listing agents. Stop talking. You're messing it all up, which they're doing here right now, which I wouldn't be surprised if DOJ came in and said, stop talking, because it's becoming a mess. They're messing it up. They really are. They're messing up the transactions. Janet, was he not messing up that transaction? I mean, if those buyers actually have money. Maybe
yeah, one of them had money for sure. But yeah, no, it just
if you had a good realtor there, maybe they could have made that deal work.
Yeah, and I think she was probably so put off by the agent and the pushiness and the ulterior motive that, I mean, who wouldn't run,
Exactly. You see, this is what's happening. But the point is, He was supposed to have already decided how much he was getting paid when he did his buyer broker agreement with them. So what did it have to do with trying to wait on getting them settled by trying to talk to the seller? It has nothing to do with that. His commission was secured when he had the buyer broker agreement set with them. Y'all follow me? So this whole mess with the buyer broker, the seller broker, the blah, 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 is messing everything up. That's the problem. So that leads me to the new form GG. So let's take a quick peek at, did I open it? I opened so many things, but did I open that one? Maybe not. Let's look at it. Let's look at GG. That's so big. Back up. GG. GG is to say, stop messing things up. That is the whole point of GG. It's saying this contract is contingent upon the seller's broker and buyer's broker and seller or buyer's brokers executing a compensation agreement with the terms acceptable to who? The buyer and the seller, right? It has to be acceptable to the buyer within 3 days if left blank. So the compensation agreement described herein, right? If it's not executed within that time period, the buyer can get their money back. And the contract is canceled. They don't, obviously, then they're moving forward and it is what it is. The whole point is that the buyer has to feel comfortable because it's the buyer who's on the hook for paying whatever they agree to. Does that make sense? So if I'm a buyer and I got Mike as my agent and I agree to pay Mike 3%. And the seller, Max, says I'm only paying 1%, but maybe I don't have 3% to pay Mike. And I said, Mike, let's try to see if we can get in our offer for Max to pay my 3%. And Max is like, I'm not doing it. I'm not
No way.
doing it. I'm only paying 1.5. So we put in the GG, right? Let's say we put in the GG and we keep going back and forth to try to get him up. But the closest we got him was 2%. Well, I know that I can't close on that because I don't have the money. So what happens? We cancel the contract. That's what GG is for. You following me? Sorry, Max, we're out. We can't do it. I don't have the money. You see, that's the point of GG. It's not because Mike wasn't going to get his money, so he's trying to fight. It's I don't have the real money to pay Mike. Or maybe I don't want to take the money out of my savings, or maybe I don't want, whatever the case. You follow me? But it's the buyer deciding, not Mike. Not Mike saying we're not going to put the offer in because I want to make sure I'm covered with my money. Because that's what happened in Janus deal. It wasn't the buyer who got to decide. The buyer wasn't even part of the conversation. Poor buyer was pushed on the side, right? I don't even think the buyer knew what was going on. It was like, no, we're not even putting your offer in yet. I got to take care of my commission first. That's what happened. Felix, you have a question?
You could always go back to the buyer though and say, hey, let's rewrite the buyer agreement and take, and obviously no 1%, but you could always take a 1% or a 2 or whatever, right?
We're not saying that that couldn't happen, but
Okay,
the
all
point
right, perfect.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, you're 100% right. Because you're thinking for the buyer. The point is, the agent with Janet, I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah,
They were thinking they weren't going to get paid or something, right? But they had an agreement, or maybe they didn't. I
Maybe
don't
they didn't.
know.
That's a problem.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
that's the point. If they had that agreement, which they were supposed to, because if not, they're in violation, they shouldn't even have worried about that. This is my point. You see what I'm saying?
Maybe it was the guy at Starbucks.
The guy at Starbucks, he said 0. I don't know. But here's the other one. The safer way to go in, let's say it was the same scenario. Mike is my agent. I said, Mike, I'll pay 3%, but let me be honest with you. I don't mind paying you 3%, but I really don't have 3%. So let's try to get a house that covers that, right? Let's put in offers at all these places that I like. I'm flexible on the house I like, but I really need the seller to pay for it because I just don't have the 3%, right? I'm tight. Money's tight. I like to shop, right? So this is what we're going to come in on. We're going to use the FF. And so when we put in an offer, this says I've entered into a separate brokerage agreement with Mike, with his brokerage, right? Which I have. And at closing, the seller's agreeing to credit the buyer and the sum below to pay my buyer broker obligation. And he has to pay 3% of the purchase price. That's what I'm asking for. And in the event that my lender says it's above what I can contribute, then the lender will pay the other part directly to buy his brokerage. That's what this is. Because if I check this one, then he's going to send it back and to the seller, and that means that Mike won't get his whole 3%, right? So we don't want to check that one. We want to check this one. You guys get it? That's what this is. So realistically, the best thing for anybody to use, in my opinion, is that FF, because you're just asking directly what you want the seller to do. Does that make sense? And whether or not you knew how much the seller was going to pay, is it relevant? Who cares? I mean, frankly, you don't even have to ask how much they're offering. You could have just simply sent that in if you wanted. Like maybe you can't get in touch with the listing agent, or maybe they're just being obnoxious. Don't even ask. Submit the FF with what your buyer wants. It doesn't really matter if you think about it. Does that make sense? You could just submit the FF. Now, the other way you could have done it, let's just share this. You could have simply, let's say we called and it was Janet. Oh, yay. Janet is the listing agent. We're so happy. Thank you, Janet. And we know that Janet's seller is offering 3%. Whew. Yay. So along with our contract, we're just going to simply submit this that says that Premier Sotheby's is going to pay Premier Sotheby's for which property, right? With the buyer's name and for 30 days, what have you, for 3% of the purchase price. And we're going to ask you to sign that, right? Now, Janet might have, sellers might say, but you came in too low and we can't do the whole amount. So they may come back and say, sorry, it's going to be less. So then the negotiation begins. You see what I'm saying? Because just because they said they were offering 3%, if the home was 500 and we came in at 450, he doesn't have to offer 3%. You following me? It's negotiable. So maybe I can say, okay, well, I can come up with 0.5%. I guess we can work that out. That's where the negotiation comes from. But either way, Mike's still getting his 3%. We just got to figure out how we're paying for it. But at the end of the day, his broker buyer agreement was set when we signed that agreement. You follow me? So when that agent says to you, well, what is in your listing agreement? They are in violation of the Code of Ethics 16.16. They are not allowed to interfere with our listing agreement. That is a violation of the Code of Ethics. How many times have we heard that now? A lot. That's why I say, well, what's in your broker buyer agreement? Because that's how much you're going to get paid. Why are you asking about our listing agreement? Why are you violating the Code of Ethics? You're going to get paid whatever's in your broker buyer agreement. So what are you worried about? Does that make sense?
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Sorry. So you could put in 3% based on a full offering,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. And if, Lord forbid, your seller says, I don't want to offer anything, when someone calls and says, are you offering compensation? You can say, put it in your offer. That's what I
Sure.
would say. Put it in your offer. In which case, what should they come in with? FF. I
Good.
really love FF. I mean, I would use FF for everything, because whether or not they have an offer of compensation, who cares? It's the buyer asking for what they want. And just so we're clear, if you're going to use FF, you need to incorporate it into the contract. So let's do this. I might not have it open. So just in case I don't, let's just open it again. So let's say you're coming in on a, knowing you guys, God help me, and as is, you know how I love those. You have to put it, now, I know Joanna Watkins told me that they are revising these, and so we will be getting new contracts hopefully sometime soon. So notice EE, it stops at. They're going to be adding FF and GG, and then you'll see other. That's why they're named FF and GG. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But until they add it, you have to check and write FF and write what it is, and then incorporate it. There you go. And just add it to the contract that way. Okay, do we have questions? I feel like we covered a lot, but oh, Felix, you have a question.
Hey, Carrie, what's our direction like when we were sitting with with our seller or a potential listing? Are we recommending to offer 3%? And are we kind of saying and being, hey, you could only put that contingent on, if they give a full price offer, or are you just saying, hey, you should offer 3%, or do you just ask?
No, I would also definitely say, listen, of course we want people to come show it. Of course,
Okay,
it's great. I love the 3%. However,
got
of
it.
course you can make a contingent upon a full price offer. Absolutely.
Oh, we do. Okay.
It's negotiable, and that's the whole point of the lawsuit, and you're in control, and it doesn't mean that you're stuck with anything. I think that gives them more feeling of control, which is great. And it's true. If you have a home that's listed at $1 million and someone comes in at 800, why would you want to give them 800, 3%? In the MLS, if you put 3%, you had to, right?
Yeah.
That was the whole point. Now you don't. And so is very a crucial point that we bring home. Now they
Yeah,
don't have to do that.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we had a real quiet seller that was like, not really pushing when you said 3%. Do we still say the part where it's, hey, that's completely negotiable?
Well, it is completely negotiable. It's
Yeah.
completely up to them. But I would say, listen, it's certainly, because it's going to be on our website. It's going to show on our website how much we're offering. I certainly think it's going to bring people to want to show your property. But again, we're going to make sure that people understand that that's based on a full price offer. And at the end of the day, it's completely negotiable and it's completely up to you. So just because you're offering 3% on the websites and all over, if someone brings you an offer that's not acceptable to you, you don't have to offer it at 3%. That is very advantageous because they're getting the marketing, they're getting the excitement, but at the end of the day, they'll have total control.
Okay, thank you.
And also, just to say, Felix, if you say based on a full price offer comes in, they still don't have to accept it at 3%. They can still change it. Nothing is locked. Mark.
Article 8 is a total commission, correct? On the listing agreement?
Yes, total commission.
Okay. And then with things being negotiable in regards to like 3% full price offer, if an offer is accepted below that, let's say ends up being 2.5, would that 0.5% go to the seller or to us?
So again, it's being negotiated. So I would suggest at this moment we make it to the seller. It's not really clear on those listing agreements, but because we're presenting to the seller that it's completely negotiable and up to them, I would suggest at this moment it's to the seller because we're not trying to make the extra money. But it is not clear on those listing agreements, and those are being revised as well to address that. April, do you have another question or your hand just still up? I'm going to assume her hand.
My hand is just up.
Okay, no worries. Okay, does anybody else have any more questions? I think we covered a lot. I want to bring up another thing that's really important. Oh,
Hey,
Linda.
Carrie, quick question. With FF submitting in the offer, are we also attaching the compensation agreement to be signed too?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, so just FF is fine then.
Just FF. So all
Okay.
you FF does it all. It's like the superhero of all addendas.
That's
It's my
all I need to know.
favorite. I know, I love it. Okay, one other big thing that you guys all need to know, and I learned more about this for a multitude of reasons. Oh, at my board meeting the other day, and I got to see the new building, which is incredible. Wait till you guys see the new building at Aura. It's amazing. So now make sure you all vote because, man, finally I get a really cool building that I'm off the board, right? Like, well, unbelievable. But anyway, so what's really interesting is Supra was hiding and sneaking around with their whole evil scare tactic of saying that you have to go join another board to be able to use Supra. Not only was that a huge lie, and there will be repercussions, that's all I'm going to say, but you do not have to join another board. In addition to that, there is a free one-time code and free app. So you do not have to have a membership to Supra. So all of you can cancel your memberships to Supra. And if somebody has a Supra box, you can tell them to send you the free app and the free one-time code. And so that is just like Central Lock in that sense. So any listing that has a Supra box, you just tell the agent, go ahead and send me the free app and the free one-time code, and you can access any Supra box for free. You do not have to belong to any association. That was a total lie. Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
I just did that with somebody who wanted to show a Supra, show a listing up here at the Villages, and they were from Aura.
Thank you. So you sent them actually, if anybody, can you send everybody on the team the free app?
I can send them out as a single request,
Uh-huh.
and then it just comes, I
And
get,
then they get the
the
app.
gentleman told me that just comes and it allows them entry into the
Mhm.
lockbox one time.
See, that's all they need. So you guys do not need to pay. If you're interested in getting into a Super box, you do not need to pay any membership. You do not need to belong to any secondary membership. All of that was a big fat lie by Supra. And it was a scare tactic to try to keep, well, I don't want to say any more than that. But anyway, it was a scare tactic and it's false. It was false information. So good news. Everybody, any clarity, anything that anyone needs on that? Okay, fabulous. Any questions about anything we've covered today? You guys feel a little more clear? You feel a little more calm? You feel a little more at ease with everything? Oh, Liz does. I love the heart. Thank you, Liz. There's Rachel. Hey, Rachel, how are you? I just see it.
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Okay, so does anybody else have questions or anything we need to cover? All right, well, I'm going to upload this video along with my others to my YouTube channel, to my private playlist. If for some reason you lost the link to my private playlist, let me know. I'll be happy to send it out. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll just send it out to the team. So you all have the link to my private training playlist. Maybe I might just change that whole, just in case old people don't have it. Maybe I'll do that. I'll do that today. I'm going to create a new training playlist and send it out to everybody.
Hey, Carrie.
Send it out.
Yes.
It's Felix.
Hey, Felix.
I was gonna call you on the side, but I mean, we're all family here, so you guys can hear the story.
Sure.
So, I'm working with my brother. He's looking to move up from Miami to Orlando, and obviously he's my brother, right? So if something were to happen where the seller is not offering the compensation, is that where I would use something like GG or
FF.
FF? FF. Okay.
And you put it in your offer.
And you put it in your offer. Okay. So then I could always change because I'm going to give him obviously the buyer representation, but if it were to come down to that, then I'd have to adjust my.
Well, we'll talk about it when you get there.
Okay. Yep.
Just
There's
do a
some
buyer
strategy
broker
to that.
agreement and then put it in as FF.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll keep you posted on that one.
Okay.
Definitely.
Sounds wonderful. Okay, guys, well, have a great day. Everyone stay safe. I have a hurricane update with leadership at 3. So after I hear about that, I'll be letting you know about the offices tomorrow. Hopefully this thing blows over and we'll be back tomorrow. Okay. Everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank
too.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Bye.
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 Bye.